worshipped her sooner. If the heavens ever did speak, she's the last true mouthpiece.
All right, everybody. Sorry about that. That's my little segue to the show. Practical Chrome. Welcome everybody to Practical Chrome. Craig, welcome to Practical Chrome, sir.
Thank you, John, although I think I was already here.
Well, you were, but the others weren't. And that was, of course, a song that has become very popular. I think it was up for a Grammy, I think. I'm not sure. It's terrible, Craig, because I've been listening to that, and I've been, reading Ayn Rand, so I don't know what's going on with me. I'm going off some kind of weird deep end. I don't know what's going on. But everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome. Enough about me personally, Craig. Quit asking me questions like that. Everyone, this is the show dedicated to everything Chrome, right? So Google Chrome on your Android device, on your iOS device, on your desktop, on your laptop, on your tablet, soon to be in other areas, on your refrigerator, on your whatever. It's going to be there. This is where you come out and find the tips and tricks on how to use it. And today we're actually going to delve a little bit into the privacy aspect. Craig actually found the actual privacy, like the layman's privacy, which was pretty cool. I read it. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So we're going to go over that a little bit. We're going to go over a little bit of news. But everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome, the show dedicated to everything Chrome. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, John. Better than James.
I was going to say, we're missing something. Something's missing.
Are we?
We're missing We are.
Okay.
We're missing our better half, our better third.
I just noticed that there's one fewer shadows. So.
This is true. All right. I don't actually have the show notes up, so I'm gonna wing it. Listen. It's been a tough evening, and we got in a little bit late, which is not normal. No, that's not normal for us. No, it's not. Let me give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull it up. But while I bring it up, Craig, you this week I know that it was a you're on the product forum for Chromebooks, and if someone were to have an issue with a Chromebook, I know that you've had a busy week there, and I know that you and a ton of other volunteers help out. Can you tell people how to just really quickly what Chromebook Central is real quick while I bring up the show notes, because I think we've talked about Rising Star, we've talked about Top Contributor, but I don't think people get it sometimes, or they miss an episode, they don't understand why you and James are really out there hitting the pavement and getting it done for people. So, just as an aside, just because I don't think we bring it up enough, kind of wanted you to, if you could, just tell us how your week was.
I don't want to talk about work, John. Chromebook Central is a Google product forum. It's a fantastic resource for if you need help with your Chromebook, you run into an edge case, a weird thing, or just a general question about what a Chromebook can or cannot do. It's also great for pre-sale questions, by the way. And it lives at chromebook.com/community. That's the short link. And it's much easier than typing in the URL it redirects you to.
This is true. This is very true. It's an ugly one. But yeah, exactly. That's the when you type in a question online, you usually go to Google's help pages. But if it is an outlier, usually the first thing you'll find is a product forum. So it's really cool once you find yourself there and you realize you're dealing with a bunch of really cool people that volunteer their time. It's pretty exciting. So thanks, Craig. I just want to say thanks from me as a person who's visited there within the last couple weeks. Just because I found myself finding an answer there to something, I appreciate it. So, and I know my sisters. Both her boys just got Chromebooks for school, so they're going to be hitting the forum, I'm sure, pretty soon here as well. Mostly to find out how to get Minecraft to work on
it. Please don't. We have a frequently asked questions thread for that, and we will mark it as a duplicate. So just a heads up, If you see an opportunity there, John, where you can get ahead of the game
Exactly.
and pop in and say, hey, I'm not an expert, I'm not a recognized expert, but I know a thing or two. Maybe I host a Practical Chrome show on Tuesday nights at precisely 10:10. If you would like to tune in, that's Eastern time, by the way. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but maybe don't buy a Chromebook if Minecraft is your primary goal.
That's true. Well, the schools knew what they were doing, basically, honestly.
Oh, sure, yeah, the schools knew, and they didn't care, because Minecraft, believe it or not, and I know this is a little bit iffy, but believe it or not, Minecraft is not part of the core curriculum.
No, it isn't. And it's a shame.
No, it's not. It's Java-based, so it's not a shame. The last thing we need is another high school course that requires you to have access to Java.
Well played, sir. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Well done. Well, awesome. So yeah, they got their Chromebooks. I got a text from her. I haven't had a chance to reply back. I'm gonna be following up with her hopefully tomorrow. Find out how, she says they're both excited about it, so I'm pretty excited. So we'll have to see how they do. They won't be calling me for assistance with that one. That's for sure. So what we'll do is let's jump into some news, Craig. We're going to do a little thing on privacy. Got a couple of show notes here about it from the there's a slide deck that you pulled. You pulled everything. I'm not gonna.
Well, I should point out, and I'll point it out again as we get further into it, but the privacy white paper was actually found by Jim over on the product forum. So credit to Jim. I'm just passing it along. I'm the messenger. Please don't shoot me. But so credit where credit's due. He did the digging there and found that.
That's awesome, and it is really, really good. I don't know if you've had a chance. I mean, I hit the headers, I skimmed each paragraph, and then I kept going. I didn't really dig in and look for. When we get there, I'll discuss that more. But it's not a legal document. It seems like it might have a little bit of straightforward talk, but it also has a little bit of looseness to it, which I like.
It seems like it's a distilled version of the terms of service. It goes into a little bit more layman's terms. What I did was I shrunk it down to pocket size. I printed it. I laminated it. I memorized it. I recite it. So that's what I do. No, I'm familiar with it. Obviously, a lot of these things, it may be one of those things that you come across and say, hey, I didn't know Chrome could do that.
I know.
When did I agree to that? And so it's kind of handy every now and then to just go through and say, all right, what's changed? Now what are they doing with what information I may have given them without reading the terms of service? So it's a handy document to have.
It is. It is. Actually, I was listening to. I'll bring it up later. We get into the privacy piece, but let's get started into some news. Though there's only a few bits of news, but to start off with, Craig, thanks to Joey over at OMG Chrome, I made myself $6 today in less than 20 seconds, and I was excited. I was excited. I was like, wow.
That is a lot for you.
It is. It is. I make literally maybe 30 cents every 10 minutes at my regular job. So this was it was awesome. Craig, what I'm talking about is the Chromecast. Craig, why don't you tell the people why St. Valentine and Chromecast are making everyone happy?
Well, I don't know that St. Valentine had any input on this, but Google made the managerial decision to give all Chromecast owners in the United States, Canada, and some other parts of the world $6 or the equivalent in free Google Play credit just for owning a Chromecast and visiting the offers page and redeeming it, which is 2 or 3 clicks. Yeah, there's not much else to say. It's a free $6. You can spend it on almost anything that Google Play Store credit can be used for. And when I say almost anything, hardware does not count. You can't use Google Play credit toward hardware. But you can buy music, you can rent a movie, you can use it to buy an app or an in-app purchase, use it to refill your cattle on Farm Town or whatever. I assume there's an Android app for that. If there's not, there absolutely should be. So yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. I'm curious, John. What have you spent your $6 on?
That's a good question. I was thinking about buying the first in a 3-volume set of Atlas Shrugged the movie, but I couldn't bring myself to do it because I would just be renting it, and I wanted to own it. So it's part of my whole it's part of my whole philosophy for the past 2 weeks. But I haven't spent it yet. I thought about it and I didn't, and then I looked at some games and I was like, yeah, but I haven't spent it yet. I'm on the cusp. I'm on the cusp. You know what I did find though, Craig, and if everyone goes over to omgchrome.com and you follow the link, there's a link at the bottom of the article in reference to the 6,000, and it's the link to get your to redeem it. It'll show you everything that's redeemable for your Chromecast. So I had some other stuff. I was just like, score, right? I ended up catching. I now own through the Google Play Store the first X-Men movie. Thank you very much. Right? So, I mean, so far Google's given me the first Transformers movie and the first X-Men movie and $6. I mean, I couldn't be happier. So I think everyone should go press a few buttons and try and make $6 and maybe even score a free movie. Have you redeemed everything you think, Craig, off of your Chromecast?
Yeah, I got the free movie. I think I've actually gotten a couple movies off of it every now and then. Gravity might have come from the Chromecast, I think. I haven't claimed the free music trial. You can get 90 days or 60 or 90 days free trial of Google Play Music All Access, but I'm already locked into the original price, so there's no need for me to cancel my subscription and try to claim that. I think it's also only for first-time buyers. So, but yeah, I think it's amazing that Google's kind of kept pace with this. Originally, it made sense, throw some extra offers, freebies in there to get people to buy the device. But it's really interesting to see that they're continuing to give away offers even now that it's a best-selling device, especially to current owners. These aren't just offers that only new purchases can claim. It's every owner. And I think that's really, really great. I don't know how they can afford to be giving away $6 per unit.
It's kind of nuts, because the other thing is that you have until March 23rd to buy one and then get the $6.
Exactly. And I remember when I first bought mine, I got 3 months of Netflix included, which is a $21 value. Probably a little more these days. And I only paid, $35 for it, free shipping from Amazon. So it was a deal then, and now it's gained $6 more. So it's amazing, John.
It's a no-brainer. It's a straight-up no-brainer. All right, so that's some Chromecast news. So the next story. You want to go there? Are you going to go there? We can go there. I can go there. I think the second story is kind of not. It's kind of. You know what I think about the second story? I'm gonna do the second story in the list, but I'm gonna preface it. And I'm gonna put a preface. I'm gonna prefix that bad boy and say this. These numbers are literally numbers almost without context, because I think that Joey does his best to try and find the context. I think he points to a few areas of the context, but then that's it. I think that you can't really. So here's the thing. Global Chromebook shipments down 20%, says Digitimes. I'm going to preface this with something else. Digitimes. Craig, what are your thoughts on the fact that, well, my two prefaces. One, I don't think the context of a 20% drop is really available to us to understand this type of cold numbers like this. I think this is I don't know. I think this is a non-story. What are your thoughts on a 20% drop?
Well, I'm kind of confused here, and part of that's because it's from Digitimes, and in general, there are a few different places that publish results for things like this. Digitimes tends not to get a lot of other things right in their general reporting. So although it may not be entirely fair because their research may be separate from their journalism, it's possible. Um, Grain of salt is what I'll say there. Now, what confuses me is Joey's article says that Digitimes is reporting that shipments dropped 20% in the fourth quarter, not consumer sales. Now, what confuses me is, does that mean that education sales dropped? Which would make sense because your third quarter is going to be over your summer holiday, and that's when schools are going to make the purchase of the devices. They're not going to purchase them during the fourth quarter once school's already started. Now, the other question is, if it's truly just shipments, the number of devices that are shipping out of China and arriving in the U.S., that also makes sense because all of the OEMs are gearing up to begin production on their newer models moving into 2015. And then just the icing on the cake is that the article also notes that HP saw a drop of 45% month on month in January of this year for all of their notebooks. So this is not a trend that's specific to Chromebooks. This is, if we look at the drop, it's a drop containing all laptops and notebooks, and Chromebooks just make up a percentage of that. But like you said, context here is missing, and I think we need that extra context to really figure out what's going on.
I know, and I don't know if it was Joey or Digitimes throw in this whole thing about the 8.1 with Bing possibly stealing some Christmas thunder, but you're looking at a shipments versus it's all, I mean, check your premises, right? I don't see the context working out to where we can all say, oh, I know exactly what that is. You would literally need someone either from Google or from someone that analyzes this type of data all the time to really explain. And I would also say to look at 3-year overall averages for these time periods, I'm sure you still see a bump. So I'm not trying to say this to Joey, but it's almost like clickbait news article for the moment because there's no context here whatsoever. I think this article is honestly it's crap.
Well, I think the title's crap. I'll give you that. I don't think Joey should have ran with the title he did, but I also don't think he could have really done much else without really editorializing the information. So exactly. I give him credit for doing his best to remain impartial, especially on a site called OMG Chrome. But I do think the title, and he does say says Digitimes, so he's got his source in there. But
he doesn't grab Digitimes quotes.
Right.
It's like says John's mom.
Well, yeah, but I'll give Joey credit. If he had done that, it would have been a little unprofessional. So Joey does a great job. We love Joey, but
I know, and he I think that he trusts Digitimes as well. So it's that we're making the jokes about Digitimes, but that's our own editorial context around Digitimes.
And we're a little more off the handle than Joey is.
I honestly don't even have any skin in this game. You're the one that hates Digitimes.
I don't hate them. I've just been increasingly frustrated with their leaks and rumors that turn out to be completely baseless. So from that perspective, you hear that their research arm is putting out numbers. Well, what's their basis there? That's my first go-to thought. Like I said, they may be completely separate. It's possible, but corporate culture, all that nonsense.
Exactly. All right. So speaking of corporate culture, it's going to be a terrible segue, but Google came up with SPDY, SPDY, which was a new protocol. I have to hold on, don't quote me yet. I got to bring up the article because it's a little technical, and then on the networking side. So I'm not really. I send my rest. I get my posts. I'm good. All the technical stuff in between. So this article, of course, is from ChromeStory.com. Dinson over there, he does another great job of kind of bringing this to light. The reason my whole segue was Google created SPDY, SPDY, as an open source or as an open networking protocol developed primarily at Google for transporting web content. Manipulates HTTP traffic when with particular goals of reducing web page load latency and improving web security. Google has turned over apparently HTTP/2. Would you say /2?
I would say whack too.
Whack 2. You use whack. I'm with you. I've heard the whack.
It's better than crack.
I I like / better. I don't know why. You know why? I don't like fast and loose terms. Like other terms. I don't like I don't know why, but I don't like whack. I don't like whack, but I appreciate that you like whack. Crack is whack. It is whack. So Google came up with SPDY. It was an open networking protocol, HTTP WAC 2, or originally named 2.0, but that 2.0 that's so yesterday. The planned version of the new protocol, and based around more of a protocol for everyone to use, right? 100% open source. Maybe even build up a little bit more, like, all good to go. So when I said about the whole thing, my segue was that Google was releasing SPDY to the world. Does that make sense, Craig? That didn't make any sense whatsoever.
No, let's start with a fresh canvas here. The year was 1999.
Al Gore created the
HTTP.
internet.
No, that happened prior to. That was in a secret military testing facility, and Al Gore was present, and he had just trained a lab rat to sing, and that was his next project. We're moving forward. 1999. HTTP 1.1 is standardized and accepted. Major websites start to use it. It's what we have today. Like you said, Google thought, we can do better, as arrogant people often do. But this time they pulled it off, as Google usually does. And in the case of SPDY, it meant much faster connectivity, a little bit more security, and in general, a massive improvement since the version in 1999. Now, it was open source, but it wasn't standardized. Google hadn't submitted it to any sort of standards organization, but Google was using it between Chrome and their existing web services. What we're seeing here is that Google has taken the next step, submitted it for standardization. It's being rebranded as HTTP 2 and improved a little bit, tweaked a little bit, thanks to the standardization input from other organizations, and that's what the web's going to move forward with. As a result, Google's going to retire the SPDY branding and go ahead and remove all of the parts and pieces that are no longer standard from the code and move forward with HTTP WAC 2, which no end user anywhere will ever see the difference.
I was going to say.
Brilliant.
This is literally like a smoke and mirrors of like, things happen magically. And we're cool.
Yeah, this is the definition of under the hood. This is going to be a server push update. Servers are going to have to be updated to support HTTP 2, probably Apache will do that. And then browsers will need support on the client end, and then, magic.
Right. So Microsoft IIS, Apache, Nginx, other web servers, and then you have IE, Opera, Chrome, Safari. All of them will have to support, if they want the speed, they'll have to support HTTP WAC 2.
Yes, and they will also have to continue to support HTTP 1.1.
Right.
Or they will break the internet.
They will, and that's a no-no these days. I do appreciate Dinson's final quote in his article, which is, as a layman user, more speed is good and open source is a lot more awesome. So
Dinson has a way with words.
He does. He's a wordsmith.
Yes.
He's a modern day A modern-day William Shakespeare.
Only easier to understand.
But we call him Bill. And then we call him Dinzon. So,
Yes.
that's right. So, awesome. Things are going to get faster, and it's open source. Sexy. Craig,
Yes.
the stable channel of Chrome
OS.
OS, thanks for the correction, has been updated again. I mean, like man, and here's what I like about this one. Here's what I like about this update. We're giving money to people that find bugs. Well, not we. I didn't give any money. But Google actually announced in this one that they're fixing 3 bugs, I think it was, and they're giving the cats a little bit of cash for finding the bugs.
Yes. There are actually 11 security fixes total. Yes, 11. There were 11 security bugs, John, in the version you were using prior to today. Can you believe that? Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Now, 3 of them are classified as high on the security ranking scale, and those are the ones that will be for sure paid out. The amount is yet to be decided. That's usually determined based on the extent that the bug covers, exactly how much access would a malicious person or piece of software have access to. And there is still that standing $3.14 million reward for anyone that can get root access to Chrome OS with verified mode enabled and have it persist between reboots. And I love that.
Persist between reboots?
Yes, because verify mode is supposed to kick in if it notices any file system changes and say, hey, buddy, no, we're going to show you the scary boot screen and force you to recover.
Interesting.
Yes, verified boot is amazing technology. I love it. And it uses the TPM.
So if we work together on that, that's like 1.5 apiece.
If we work together on that, we will spend the rest of our lives trying and get nowhere.
It's that whole back end thing. You and I will try and do rests and posts to make it work.
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on in the background. All right. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
And another thing I love about this is not just that Google's paying out money, but that at some point in the near future, once enough users have updated to the secured version, they will release all of the technical details from the bug reports and make them public so that you can understand how the bugs were found, what processes were used to fix them, all of that fun stuff. So if you're a person that works in the security industry, this is Google showing you love in a way that most other organizations tend not to. There was that report recently about Microsoft, the developer forcing their hand after almost a year, I think, of reporting an issue and it not being fixed. And Microsoft was talking about waiting and putting it into a service pack, but the developer finally said, "You've been delaying it long enough. I'm just going to throw it out there." And of course, then Microsoft was all offended. "What do you mean you're just throwing code out there? We didn't have time to fix it." Well, no, you had plenty of time to fix it. So it's nice to see that Google's receiving the bugs, fixing them, and then making all of that public, including the details of the data was submitted, the time it took to fix it, and then the time the update shipped. You can go through and track all of that. And I love that they're a vendor that's doing that. So many aren't.
Agreed. Totally agree. I mean, they don't even need to. No one's requiring them to be that transparent, but yet they are. So I think it's almost even a volunteer. I mean, it's good stuff. I'm with you. It's good stuff. All right, Craig. Mind your privacy, sir. Right? The white paper. We're gonna move it. By the way, no more news. Transition to main topic. And you said Jim. Jim's the one that found the white paper.
Correct.
Awesome. Big props to Jim. Again, I scanned it. Everyone, trying to think of how you can get this. How bad's that URL, Craig? Can we say it?
Well, it'll be in the show notes, right? When you push the link out.
I will update the show. Listen, everybody. So, Google.com, whack Chrome, whack browser, whack privacy. So think about it like that. Look at that. Google, Chrome, their browser, a little bit of privacy, whack whitepaper.html. Pretty straightforward. I mean, if you really want to read it, it's actually really good. Again, google.com, whack Chrome, whack browser, whack privacy, what we're talking about, whack whitepaper.html.
Alternatively, you can just open up a search and type Google Chrome Privacy White Paper, and you'll probably get there.
Not as sexy because I've whacked myself 4 times versus, Googling it.
Well, that's a whole different thing. I mean, you could do a voice search with this. Say, okay, Google, did I activate all your devices? I did mine.
Not mine. No. Mine's still playing that song in my other earbud.
The invisible one?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
I've been to the future and back, and I've got one that's actually like almost like a. Anyway, so Chrome, whack browser, whack privacy, whack white paper. This document again is actually really, and I mentioned it before. It is like the layman's version, the dumbed down, the talk to me like I'm 5 version of the terms, policy terms. I think that Craig, you said that it is kind of like that, right? It even has like links, how to turn certain things off. At the very top, it has one of the questions I was going to ask you, Craig, just because I figured you were an expert. But it answers the question right away. I'm already there. When I look at the Google Chrome Privacy White Paper, I was going to ask you, Craig, is this a living document? Is it up to date? Is this just some web page that never gets modified, and then someone goes, oh no, realizes that they've added 4 new features that are going to have privacy conscious, privacy concerns attached?
Correct. That's a good question. That's actually the first thing I wanted to point out too. The very top, it gives you the last modified date, and as of recording tonight, this was last updated on January 20th, 2015, with the release of Milestone 40 for Chrome Stable. And if you get a further update and you still want to check something, or you have any questions about this document, shoot out an email to privacy@chromium.org. The team is active on this white paper. They are happy to answer questions. It may not be, within 5 minutes of you emailing them, because maybe it's a complicated answer, but they will get to you. These guys are fantastic.
There you go. Thank you, Craig. Another thing is right below the modified is then you have actual bookmarks to check the document for something that you might have questions about. So if someone were to tell you, hey man, when you type in a word and Google's immediately searching it, immediately searching whatever you're looking at, so that way you get a list of pre-recognition of what you're trying to search for, right? And people talk about that. So you'd say to yourself, I need to find that section of the document because it's a long document, and then so they have a handy dandy link to all of their products inside of Chrome that do those different functions. For instance, the Omnibox predictions. Of course, I picked the first one on the list, so that doesn't really help you out. But they have a breakdown of things like spelling suggestion, translate, signing in, geolocation for your browser. That's the big one. The do not track functionality if you turn it on. Online payments with Google Wallet. Incognito and guest mode. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? How does it work? They have that listed out for Chrome as well.
I think one that is perhaps very of interest is the data compression. If you want to click that and jump down with me.
Yep.
For Chrome for Android and Chrome for iOS, and as we talked about a few weeks ago, possibly for Chrome Desktop by way of an extension in the future. So when you're going to use a data compression proxy service, you are sending traffic to Google. Instead of just going straight to the open web, you're passing it through Google, they're compressing it, and ultimately saving you bandwidth and potentially money if you pay per gigabyte. But Google's very clear about what they log, what they track, and how that works. For example, it's automatically disabled for any HTTPS websites, so banking websites, logging into a user account, Google services, and it's also disabled for incognito tabs. So if you're opening up a tab to search for a birthday present suggestion for a family member, that will not be sent through Google proxy servers, which is beneficial because then you don't have to worry about Google tracking that and associating that. Google also says that your IP address is forwarded to the original HTTP server via a forward, so do not think of this as a service that's going to give you anonymity, because that's not a service they're looking to provide here. So you're not going to get around filters at work or school by using this. They also say that they send a blanket request out to check the status of the proxy connection, and they give you the exact domain that's going to be hit each time, so that you don't get confused and think that they're sending something else out. They also explain what logs are stored, how they're kept. So for example, the content of a proxy page will be cached according to each page's cache policy as specified by the headers. So in other words, websites have the ability to control how long a page should be cached for. Images, for example, tend to be cached longer than static HTML, which can change more often than images. Google says that these logs are not associated with your Google account, and the entire log entry will be removed within 6 months. And Google will use both the request and the response data to improve the service. For example, more effective optimizations can be uncovered by analyzing timing data for page loaded through the proxy services. So in other words, they may look at the data that's been requested over a period of time, they may look at the file sizes, and they may drill down a little bit to decide if something can be improved upon so that a future user has maybe a little bit faster connection, even if it's just a few milliseconds, because that's what Google tends to do. They focus on the data. So very clear. This entry tells you what to expect from the service, what they log, how the logs are associated and stored, when the logs are deleted, not to think of it as a service that's going to provide anonymity, and what additional requests they make to check for service status. So and this is what, probably less than 200 words?
Yep.
Very simple to read, very simple to understand. This is amazing, in my opinion.
I know it actually. What this actually allowed me to do is to see kind of what Google was doing with that product, which I wasn't quite sure. And actually, they're kind of explaining a little bit of the technology itself. Basically, if you understand HTTP cache or internet cache for your browser, basically it stores some information on your local hard drive, so that way it doesn't have to actually pull it down from the web every single time. So you save a lot of bandwidth with that. Right?
Well, your browser does that automatically.
No, I know. So, but it sounds like Google's doing the exact same thing, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They're doing it server side, and then they're also compressing it. So,
correct.
For example, the best example is if you request an image, say it's a PNG file and it's 10 megabytes big. Google will reach out to the internet, retrieve that image, maybe convert it to WebP, and knock off 5 megabytes of the file size, and then hand you an image, the final image, the edited, the optimized image, saving you half the data that it would have cost you, and delivering it faster than it would take to download a 10 megabyte file versus a 5, even with the additional overhead of compressing it in real time.
Correct. But they're also caching, so they themselves also don't. So they're actually acting as their own. Basically, it's like their web browser sitting over here doing these other extra things and then pushing it out. I mean, they're actually talking about that a little bit and explaining how that would work and how the data, while cached for the same purposes that we have for ourselves, it's not attached to your account, and it does expire either based on the policy of it or based on the fact that it's been in 6 months and it's removed.
Right. So if a popular image is being viewed by multiple people using the compression service, Google's copy of the image will be served instead of them reaching out each time to grab a new version.
So basically, I mean, excuse me, it really is going to, it's just a darn good idea. And it's one of the things where you're like, oh, that makes sense. So, but they actually like wrote it out in this statement to describe, what they're doing and why they're doing it. Like you said, under 200 words for that section. Again, you've even got at the very bottom, Craig. I noticed this one was kind of interesting because I had no idea, right? I'm not a Mac user. Um, but iOS 8 and Mac OS X Yosemite handoff support. So I had no idea, right? So it's just one of those things that's like Windows doesn't do this, so it was like one of those things where I'm like, what? Right? But of course, Mac is its own platform. It has its own little idiosyncrasies. It's used by many, many people. So of course, Google's gonna adopt the support to make sure everything works. But this is interesting. While browsing in standard, i.e., non-incognito session, Chrome will share your current URL with iOS 8 Plus to support the handoff feature that was added in OS X Yosemite. The information is only sent to Apple devices and are paired with iOS devices, and the data is encrypted in transit. And then they give you links to understand what that feature is. And so I just thought that was very interesting that for one platform they really have gone ahead and used a feature that takes the syncing away from Google and puts it with the Mac ecosystem. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the syncing is still there. You can still go to recent tabs and pull it up that way. But this is just integrating it with Apple's native sync platform,
Exactly.
which makes a lot of sense because on Mac, Google has to compete with Safari and all of the other browsers that are also available for Mac. So Chrome is just another player on OS X.
It's true. It's true. So it's just interesting to see a third-party vendor security policy listed as kind of like a here's what we're doing, and here's this possible scary things, and we're just going to explain what's going on, and then we're going to tell you what's going on in this white paper, and then at the very bottom it's like, and here's a third-party vendor that we've conformed to because we want to make sure that the experience is broad based on the device, right? It's just really cool that they actually even put that in their white paper that they're expressing. That they're kind of going up with that. There's a large section on software updates. It's a really good document. So I was really pleased to read it and be like, wow, interesting. The phishing and malware protection, if you've ever gotten the red screen where it's like, don't go to this website, which there's actually been a couple of errors in that in the past where sites have been accidentally listed as malware sites. They talk about that. Network predictions. So I mean, there's a lot of great information in here. I recommend everyone check it out. So do that. Craig, the next thing up, again, it was one of those things where I'm like, that is really cool. I had the opportunity, and Craig did too, to head out with Google to talk about working with the product forums and some of the ways that you can help users and easily express or convey a support solution. There was a lot of talk about that when I went out to hang out with Google there for a minute and see the campus there in New York while they talked to us who were some people that helped out with the forums. I had the honor and the pleasure to see some of that information, and in the slideshow that Craig, that you have, they actually bring up some of that information and to show the fact that Google saw a problem with, and what I'm going to talk about is, and we brought this up last week, and Craig, I really appreciate you bringing this slideshow from Google about this issue. When you go to a site that is secure, HTTPS, right? So that's a secure site. If there's something wrong, or if there's someone in between you and a site that needs to be secure, your browser should alert you, right? But most of us pretty much gloss over that. We're literally tired of seeing warnings and stuff like that, right, Craig?
Yes, one of the key aspects here is recognizing that users are behaving unsafely when they're presented with a warning and finding ways to better convey whether it's a serious issue or an issue that can and should be just proceeded ahead with caution, just make a note of, and helping to clarify not just the priority of the issue, but also the effects that the issue may have on you, whether it's a privacy violation or a security violation or something in between.
Right. Exactly. It's a little bit of a you better recognize. You better recognize, right? So the slideshow from Google actually does a really good job, and again, this was kind of in the same light of of some of the speakers that we had at when Google was trying to relay to us in the best way to present a solution to someone. They really did they did a lot of work on trying to figure out why users would gloss over information. Like, are they being provided too much information in a in a pop-up from their browser stating that the connection to a secure site is invalid for whatever reason? Where's too much information? Where's not enough information, right? Because you've got someone like myself that might want to know, why, right? What's the who, what, where, and why of what's going on? Is it really important? Is it a false positive, right? I might want to go in there and check that out. Where someone else might see a big red lock with an X on it and go, "Oh, cool, something red. I'm not going there," which is really what you want. But Google also talks about in this talk, the developers actually talk about what when you do have false positive, what's the narrative that you want to present? Do you want to present you kind of can continue if or do we want to convey, try and break it into certain categories and then give a brief statement as to what we believe it is, and then have an advanced area so you can break it down. Craig, what do you think of? And we could show images, but definitely, and of course, show note links. Not really working at the moment. Next week we'll have more news on that, right, Craig?
Maybe. We'll see. News is news.
I can honestly say, and the image that they show in the slideshow, that the old school errors, I hated them. I literally hated them. I thought that, and it's no offense to the people that originally created the errors, because I think really their best interests were at heart. But this site security certificate, the old Chrome SSL warning, they were terrible, because it is literally it was too much information in your face. I didn't even with the help me understand button. And also help me understand talks down to me, where, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's the whole like talk to me like I'm 5, but don't actually talk to me like I'm 5, right? So help me understand, right? Whereas the new verbiage is just a button that says advanced, and that's where I go, I'm going to dig into advanced because I know what I'm looking at.
Right, and I think one of the most important things they did here was to, like you said, break it down by category, try to figure out what the issue could be, and then present a localized dialogue for that issue. And the best example they provide is blame the clock. A lot of times the issue here is that the computer's date and time setting is incorrect. And that leads to problems when you're trying to validate that the remote people are who they say they are. So Google can recognize this pretty often, pretty accurately, and when they detect that that could be the issue, they present a page that says, your clock is behind, with a button that says update date and time, which takes you to your operating system's date and time settings. And Google says that their research indicates that 20% of all SSL errors are related to incorrect date and time. So right there, that's 1/5 of every issue that's being displayed is now solvable with a big blue button instead of just throwing, hey, something's wrong in your face. I love that change. I also think that they're doing a pretty good job. Captive portals are another thing that they say break things about 4.5% of the time. So, much less often, but not enough to completely ignore. And they've created a localized page for that too with a connect button that brings up the network's connect portal, and you go from there. Now, not every time that there's an error is necessarily an attack, is the other thing. There are legitimate causes for something like this to be in place. An employer, for example, may set a master certificate on their local server that then establishes secure connections with the outside internet, and that keeps the local traffic secure, but also readable by the company's filters. So they may still be able to block YouTube or Facebook even though they use secure connections because your data locally is encrypted by your company. So of course they can decrypt it in real time, but ultimately the data leaving the company site and going to the outside internet remains encrypted in transit with a different set of encryption than what's used internally. So there are legitimate uses there. The other example is traffic shaping. We talked about this a few weeks ago. The Google security engineer that was on an airplane and detected that the airplane was issuing a fake certificate claiming to be YouTube. And the airline has said, now that they've had a chance to talk, they've said that it's because they don't really like people using YouTube, and if they're going to, they want to keep a local copy of that video so that they're not pulling it down each time. And funny enough, that security engineer wrote this presentation. If you read the comments, she's the same person that wrote the presentation. So again, fantastic real-world experience. It connects here. I like the approach that Google is taking, but what's really interesting is if you read some of the comments that they received when they did surveys on this. For example, one of the comments verbatim is, "I don't know if my information is safe. I don't know what encrypted means." And that's in response to viewing one of the old dialog pages that would prompt the user to take action or proceed back to safety. And as John pointed out, the wording is everything here. You don't want to talk down to users, but you also want to provide the most relevant information that you can without confusing them. And unfortunately, that is a challenge. Google presents in this presentation 5 different criteria for writing these phrasings. The first one is that it cannot be technical language. Period. It can't use words like encrypted, or it shouldn't, and it shouldn't use words like SSL and encrypted and in transit.
You can say it because I think that as an educated person, as educated people, we can honestly respect and understand the fact that just like when you're taught how to make a PowerPoint, if you go to a PowerPoint presentation, like training class, they're like only have 6 bullet points, and each statement can only have 12 words in it, right? Because otherwise, then your PowerPoint's there's too much words, right? Like that's one of those standards, right? So the fact that Google says to themselves, not only do we have no technical words, but all the vocabulary must be 6th grade or lower.
Yes, that's what I was getting to. And here's the issue. The average reading ability for the average American is at a 6th to 7th grade level. We learned this at the meetups. And the biggest problem here is Google is targeting the 6th grade level, which means that they're targeting the average, which means that 50% of the time, the person reading the error message has less than a 6th grade reading level worth of education. So you really do need to avoid technical language. You really do need to be as brief as possible, specific about the risk, while providing enough information that the user can make an informed decision before they just click away. So it's a challenge. It really is.
I think even though because we see warnings and errors all day long, whether or not you're on a Linux machine or no, really you don't see any on those. But if you have a Windows machine, you're seeing them all day long, and you really just want to bypass them, right? So I even like the sixth grade thing, like I think that some of might take an affront to that, but because I think it's actually for everybody, Craig. I think that it's not to harp on this point, but I think that when I heard Google talking about that at the meetup, when they were explaining the best way to explain a solution to a user, and I think that the point was not to dumb it down. That wasn't the point at all or whatsoever. It also allowed for faster reading and easier comprehension of what you were reading that quickly. So that way, it was a chance for you not to gloss over what you were reading. I think that was also my takeaway.
Yes, I would agree with that. It doesn't. There's a threshold there where if you make it too complicated, you start to alienate users. But making it easier to read benefits everyone overall in general. So I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. It's also a comprehension thing. It's like in the speed with you need to comprehend it and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, and that plays into slide number 40, which is, can we nudge users to heed the advice? And in this section, they start to talk about that the issue where users just want to proceed. And in some cases, the user should under no circumstances ever proceed, especially if the connection is under attack. So Google's criteria here is to provide clear instructions, an attractive preferred choice, and an unattractive other choice. And this is where we get into hiding things in the advanced section, which you talked about. So in the case of the standard SSL warning message, there is a bright blue back to safety button. That would be the preferred option. In this case, Google has determined that the connection is not secure, it's not a clock issue, it's not a captive portal. They've ruled out the obvious. Something else nefarious could be happening behind the scenes. So instead of doing anything, they want to put you back to safety. The alternative, they still want users to be able to proceed, though, because you don't want to alienate users like John, who thinks he knows what he's doing. So you hide it. You hide the not preferred choice under the advanced section, because if a user won't, let's put it this way, if a user won't hit advanced install to make sure that the toolbars don't get installed when they're installing programs, they're not going to click advanced to bypass an SSL warning. In general. John might, because John likes to break things. But that's okay, because I do too.
That's right. I dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Every day. I bypass the. No, I'm just kidding. I think that the and if anybody gets a chance to look at the slides, honestly, coming up here, you're going to see these types of warnings, and I think they're. I mean, there's the material design aspect, right? They have the whole like new material design bad lock logo and a lot of white space and the blue button. But it is a lot cleaner, and I think it's a huge step forward. I think that the information that we received from the meetup and the fact that they're using this all across their entire platform, it might seem like a dumbing down, but I think that it's amazing to see it and to see it work, and to see their information based around the different surveys that they've done, the different testing that they've done. To see that it went from 30% to 58% comprehension of what was going on, it's pretty cool. And the fact that people are going to be protected. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, where it's like, what does yellow mean? What does green mean? What is my lock is green right now, but now my lock has a yellow triangle over it. Like, what does this mean? And I think they were talking about hiding it initially, and so we're because it is just like a glaring thing there that you don't really understand. Like right now, I've got in mine, I have the whole the plugins are blocked. I have Chrome set up so that way plugins don't open automatically. if someone were to turn that on and not understand what it is, I mean, it should be something else in the URL bar besides the star for favorites and the HTTPS lock. Like, what does all this mean? So to be able to present something like this and it to be a clear, concise message, easy for someone who wants to get through it to find the way through it, but also for someone that really should not dance with the devil in the pale moonlight and just click the blue button to proceed back to safety. It's right there, and it's like literally the first button you're going to click.
Yeah, and slide 55 actually calls it opinionated design. And I love that. It says opinionated design works where text fails. So even if the phrasing is a little bit imperfect, the big blue back to safety is going to be more appealing than the proceed at your own risk hidden under the advanced menu.
Exactly. And the other thing that's interesting about this, when you think about it, when you're working on a project, whether you're about to affect, whether you're working with a quorum of people and you're going to present something to about 50 or 100 people or 100 users, 200 users, because you're putting something together. It's interesting to think that Google went from a company that allowed some developers to be a little bit more like fast and loose with some things, where like you've got like you've got like the dinosaur, right? So, and not that that's fast and loose. I mean that's whimsy. That's whimsy. Okay, that's whimsy. But when you look at things like Linux products and open source design, things like that, and you're working with folks who do not have to have something go through a corporate filter every day. You have Google where they're taking a lot of time to not just remove like the guy that built the code, right, to dictate what it says, and not that that's bad, right, but to be able to take this opportunity to like really do all the marketing and the understanding and the surveys and the constant double and triple checking to find out that what is the best way to say this, because if you've used applications in the past that were written by one or two people, there are some things that are like that hurt when you're trying to figure something out, and like the warning that's coming out is just either too dry because they're trying to be funny, or like what I mean. I don't know. I think it's interesting to see Google taking this approach where they literally are looking at things from a perspective of, well, our browser is used by millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Let's do our best to get something like this right, and not from a perspective of we want to look good doing it, but we want it to actually convey the actual correct message first time.
Yes, and there's a funny story that circulates every now and then where there was a program developed by a small team, and while in development, there was an issue that was reported that the development team could just never get to reproduce successfully. So the error message wasn't anything complicated. It just, when it popped up, it said, "Call this number." And a user came across it, they called the number, it was the developer's cell phone, and the developer was eternally grateful because the user was able to describe what they had just done prior to make the issue be reproducible. And it's that type of thing where error codes can either be your best friend or your worst nightmare. It's almost binary to some extent. Either because when you encounter an error code, the day's already ruined. But it can either go well or it can go horrible. There's usually no in between at that stage. So, and I think you're right. I think that this is a symptom of Google growing larger and adding more teams. And I mean, the security team is obviously very, very focused, not just on making a secure browser, but doing these studies and finding this research. And I think the product has to reach a certain stage before you can justify adding a security team to be interested in this sort of thing. So I think it's a symptom of Chrome growing larger and more important to Google's bottom line and their external branding. So I want to see more. I like this. And I love that they made this public because this is definitely an internal thing.
Oh, this is totally an internal thing. Um, totally. So, it's very. I just like it. It's really cool. So, all right, that is security. Again, what we talked about right now was the privacy white paper available out there with all the wax. Definitely check that out because that's going to go over some of the, in layman's terms, it's going to go over the privacy policy or not privacy policy. It's going to go over the functions of the core components of Chrome that actually deal with your data, right? So think of it like that. If you want to know what Google's doing with your data when you're using Chrome, that's where you want to go. You don't want to check out the security privacy white paper. I'm sorry, the Google Chrome privacy white paper. So if you want to, again, check that out. What we've just been talking about just now is really like an internal paper, an internal presentation going over what Google's doing to make sure that your security, when you're on the web and dealing with SSL, what they're doing to make sure that when you see an error pop up, it's not something that you just want to fly through and be like, oh, which button do I hit just to get to the next friggin' page? Like, I'm so tired of seeing these errors. It's them doing their best to make it A, more intelligent, and then B, easier for you to understand when it does come through. So that's two very interesting articles, or two interesting pieces of internet information that you could take a look at. Craig, any final thoughts, my friend?
Not really. I feel like what we talked about tonight is a point of concern for a lot of people. As Google is commonly featured on the media more and more as this gigantic company that knows everything about you all the time, it's nice to be able to look at a white paper and see not just the data that they're collecting, but the fundamental technical reasons behind needing to collect said data. And of course, if you're really interested in knowing all the stuff that Chrome tracks anonymously, it's open source. And there's a file, it's just full of every histogram that Google tracks, every single metric point, and you can just read through it. And it's a lot of stuff, I'll be honest, but that stuff is all anonymous. So that's not tied to you in particular. Their reports just say there are 500 million Chrome users globally, and 2.3% of them ran into this problem here. 98% of them are now using bookmarks, and 10% of them still cannot figure out how to type in their password, especially following a change. And that's a lot of A/B testing there. It's very, very powerful stuff when you have the ability to track that anonymously. So it's interesting. I love this stuff. Hopefully the privacy paper will put a few fears to rest. And the security thing, it's important to realize that that's just a small glimpse of a much larger effort internally to help improve the security information across the entire platform. It's not just SSL errors, it's everything. But this presentation specifically focuses on SSL errors, and it gives us about 60 slides worth of information. So, small glimpse.
Small glimpse. I like it. All right, well, Craig, I think that's gonna do it for this episode of Arctical Chrome. We'll of course be back next week, hopefully same time and same channel, and maybe be going over a little bit of information about the cocoon, and then the subsequent butterfly of our growth. Craig, where can people find Mr. Tumbleson besides the product forums over there at the community there?
Well, people can find me right here on this channel. Where are we broadcasting now? Is it Vimeo or is it Google Video?
It's actually the old AOL platform. Yeah. So not enough people watching. Really.
Gotcha. I heard it might be YouTube, but that's like so 2006, so I wasn't sure.
I know, I know, I know all about it.
Well, people can also find me on Google Plus and Twitter and the other places where people are generally. So yeah, you see a crowd, I'm probably in there somewhere.
So there you go. Did you hear that Google and Twitter did come up with an agreement that live tweets. There's a lot of twits on Twitter, but no, Google Google will be provided with live tweets based on. So you'll get live. It's hard to describe. When you Google something, you'll now actually see, if applicable, very live tweets within the past seconds based on your actual search string. They just came up with an agreement.
Yes, and I think it's actually the second such agreement, but there was a period of time where there wasn't an agreement. Because I can remember searching tweets in real time using Google, and it's a fantastic tool if you want to hear what the what did you call them? Not tweets.
Twits.
Twits. What the twits are tweeting about in real time. I mean, I like to follow twits. I don't know about you, but if you're looking for tweets from twits, you'll be able to do that in real time using Google.
Using Google, exactly. Um, I don't tweet because I don't want to be a twit, so you can't find me on the tweeters. Um, you really can't find me anywhere these days. That's why there's a cocoon been growing. But if you really do want to ping me, definitely check out Practical Chrome on Google Plus, and then of course I'm on the Google Pluses. If you have any comments or concerns about Ayn Rand or Atlas Shrugged right now, I'm into that. I'm down. I'm right there. Some people say she's bitter. I don't know about that. That's where I'm going right now. And of course, Google Chrome, which is of course a passion of mine, along with Oracle products. So catch me out there. But everyone, thanks for watching Practical Chrome. Thanks for catching us every week, and we will see you next week, hopefully with James. Craig, I've been missing my curmudgeon. I've been missing my man that says that blows. Like,
Yeah, I agree. The show was definitely happier tonight.
it did have a silver lining instead of a dark lining. No, we missed James, and we hope we get him back next week for the cocoon splitting. That's where I'm going with that. I'm going.
Okay.
It needs to split. You need to see a little bit of that like orange and black coming out from the monarch butterfly.
We're gonna fix that before next week.
We're gonna patch that up. Everyone, again, thanks again for watching Practical Chrome, the show dedicated to everything Chrome. We will see you next week, split cocoon or not.